Hey guys, I haven't made much content in a while, so I just wanted to make a quick review of my very basic thoughts on two pilots that recently dropped from the same creator, Hazbin Hotel and Helluva. I've only seen Helluva once, and I've seen Hazbin Hotel twice, once on my own and once with a group of friends in which we made commentary the whole time. Personally, I like them both. They're not perfect, I don't think they're masterpieces, but I enjoyed watching them and overall just fell in love with their style and presentation, Hazbin Hotel in particular. First off, the animation in both is spectacular. So much time and effort and attention to detail really went into all of this, and it's easily the pilot's strongest aspect. The voice acting is fantastic. I love seeing Elsie Lovelock shine in her singing talent. The musical numbers in Hazbin Hotel were honestly incredible for a web animation. And it's nice to hear voices I recognize in Helluva, such as Brandon Rogers, Brock Baker, and the guy who played Invader Zim. In terms of negatives, I'm mostly going to be talking about Hazbin Hotel, mostly because it's just a longer pilot with much more going on, which means there's more to look at and in turn more to pick apart. All I gotta say about Helluva that doesn't overlap with Hazbin Hotel is that I found many of the jokes in Helluva funnier than in Hazbin. There's been a lot of criticism surrounding Hazbin Hotel about it being style over substance, having one-note characters, and being offensive just for the sake of being offensive. So I want to cover those since I do agree with them to a certain extent. The first common criticism I notice is that it's style over substance, which I can understand and agree with to a certain extent. Because the characters can't really be developed on the level of a full-fledged series, it has to fall back on its presentation often. But I don't think that means there's no substance to Hazbin Hotel. There are plenty of smaller but existent character moments that can be analyzed and interpreted, and parts of the style, such as the musical numbers and the tone it takes on, are things I personally see as substantial in the pilot. The musical numbers give some insight into characters, specifically Charlie, as well as the society she lives in and how her beliefs contrast with theirs, which leads to characters. I've heard people complain that the characters were one note, and I think I understand why. Angel Dust. He's the most obvious example of a one-note character in the pilot. He's a flamboyant porn star. That's his character, and more than half of his lines have to do with sex in some way. But honestly, I don't think he's that bad of a one-note character. His shtick could get annoying after a while, but one, it really wasn't as forced or beaten into the ground as it could have been, and two, the other jokes in the pilot are varied enough that he doesn't often get a chance to throw a whole slew of innuendos at the audience. As well as that, like I mentioned earlier, there are moments where the characters, even Angel Dust, are shown to be more than just one trait and having more of a full-fledged personality. And besides, like I said before, the pilot doesn't have a ton of time to show every single side of a character's personality. That's what the rest of the show is for. The reason why it doesn't bother me here and why it does bother me in something like the Anytown pilot is that Hazbin Hotel has scenes where characters are explored, while jokes, story, and action are all happening at the same time, while Anytown is only able to focus on one thing at a time for some reason. For minutes on end, we have to sit through dialogue that repeats what we already know about these characters where no real jokes or story is happening. It's not engaging to watch, while Hazbin kept me hooked pretty much the entire time. While Hazbin Hotel doesn't have the greatest characters in the world, I can safely say that I didn't find any of them insufferable to watch, which is more than I can say for other pilots. And finally, let's get the elephant out of the room. Both Hazbin Hotel and Helluva are most commonly criticized for being offensive. And with a lot of these people, I just have to ask, do you know what the setting for these pilots is? It's hell. I don't expect the characters to act like amazing, kind, selfless people. They're in hell for a reason. That being said, I do agree that in some aspects, both of these pilots veer into the territory of being offensive or adult just for the sake of it. I most often notice this through the swearing and constant mentions of sex in both of these pilots. I'm not saying I never swear or talk about sex, it's a common thing for humans to do, but it does get to the point where it's just a bit excessive for my taste. I don't consider either of those things to be jokes in and of themselves.
I want to choke on that red of yours, your and lick all of your before taking out your and with more teeth until you're screaming like a fucking baby.
But more importantly, there's a scene in Helluva where someone says the R slur, completely uncensored, which is a bad thing. People can get actually triggered by that. However, I don't think that in the context of the joke, that word was purposeless. I won't be playing the clip because of, well, triggers, but to basically explain the joke, Brandon Rogers' character says, "How do I get this across in a way that's not offensive?" And then he says the R slur, because that's the joke, which, I mean, isn't the worst punchline in the world. It isn't a completely valid reason to use the slur, but personally, it doesn't bother me as much as it would for others. I'm not saying you can never be offensive, that kind of humor can be done well, but if you are going to do that, just make it funny, because if it's not, it's just offensive. And Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss both kind of veer into the offensive just for the sake of being offensive territory. It's the sort of thing I would definitely like to see fixed, but considering the style of the show, it makes sense for it to be there. However, I don't think these issues distract me enough to make me dislike the pilots, at least as of right now. Maybe this will end up like Anytown, where I give a positive score and dislike it more and more the further time goes on and the more I rewatch it. But for now, I'm giving both Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss a 6 or 7 out of 10. 6.5 if you really want an exact number. And for those of you who are curious, I currently see the Anytown pilot as more of a 3.5 out of 10 than a 5.5. Just my opinion, though. You can watch my review if you find it worth your while. Anyways, I'm currently working on a much bigger and more time-consuming review, so stay tuned for that. And let me know in the comments if there's something else you think I should review at some point in the future. See you later!